Hey there! Welcome back to another review, this time of Child's Play 2. Sorry, Jack. Chucky's back. And I'm showing my Laserdisc of the film because why not? I mean, look at that. That's really cool. I love that. I love that. There's a big, giant picture of Chucky on the back of this Laserdisc. Anyway, Child's Play 2 is a sequel to Child's Play. Duh. And it came out in 1990 and didn't do very well critically. It gets like a 40% of Rotten Tomatoes. Made 35.7 million around that in terms of box office worldwide, 28.7 million in the US on a $13 million budget. So it made a profit. It wasn't a huge hit though. I personally think it should have done better. The first movie was made for about 9 million and it made about 44 million, so it was a much bigger hit. Um, and this movie, to me, I think it's really underrated. And I know among Child's Play fans, this is pretty high up on the list when it comes to the quality. But when it comes to other critics and other people who are looking at this movie, and I know it's all subjective, but I think this movie's a lot better than its reputation suggests it is. I mean, when I look at discussions online or articles talking about great horror sequels, Child's Play 2 is rarely ever mentioned. And I think that's a real shame because I think this is an excellent sequel. I think this is a stupendous sequel, and I honestly do like it a little bit more than the first film. And that's kind of crazy because for many years I was one of those people who was like I like the first film more, but after watching the first one again and watching Child's Play 2 again, Child's Play 2 answers some of the it ends up it takes some of the complaints I had with the first movie. It actually listens to them and then improves upon. It ends up taking those complaints and it's takes those problems and it solves them. And that's why I give it a slight edge over the first movie. And this is one of my favorite slasher films of the 90s, one of my favorite horror films of the 90s, and definitely I would have to say my favorite Child's Play movie. And I guess that there's a lot of that is because it's a straightforward slasher. It's got a little bit better pacing, in my opinion, than the first movie does. It doesn't have to do the origin story. It doesn't have to build stuff up. It just gets the ball rolling right away, which I do appreciate. It doesn't take that long to really get into the story, and I do really like that. It adds some new characters in there as well as some of the same ones, and Andy comes back, Andy Barclay. Alex Vincent returns to play Andy, which was really nice to see. And so there's a lot of continuity that way. And you have new characters like Christine Elise's character of Kyle, which I really did like. Good supporting cast. I mean, you got Gerrit Graham, who I love in Phantom of the Paradise. I love his role as Beef in that movie. You have Jenny Agutter, who was in American Werewolf in London, which is another one of my favorite films. They do a solid job as Andy's foster parents. And of course, you got Brad Dourif coming back to voice Chucky, and he knocks it out of the park yet again. And this is actually Brad's personal favorite Child's Play film that he's done, and I can see why. It's a really good movie. It's not only a really good sequel, it's a really good movie. It's directed by John Lafia, who was one of the writers for the first film. And I thought John Lafia did a really bang up job directing this movie. Before this, he'd directed a film called The Blue Iguana and a few episodes of Freddy's Nightmares. So he didn't have like a lot of experience, but he took whatever experience he had and put it to good use here and directed a film. He directed the film just about as well as Tom Holland did with the first movie. And that's no small feat. Absolutely no small feat. And what I really loved how he shot this movie. He shot in this sort of fairy tale sort of way. Where, and what do I mean by that? Well, it has this surreal look to it. This kind of ethereal quality to it. And I think that was intentional. He was trying to make it look like some kind of twisted fairy tale, akin to something like Hansel and Gretel, which is what a story which is actually featured in the film, where Janie Agutter, her character ends up reading Hansel and Gretel to Andy in one scene, her character Joanne. So the direction in this movie, there's a lot of sequences. A lot of the film is shot in this sort of tilted, off-kilter way, where it's kind of shot from the perspective of Andy or of Chucky. So it's shot in a way that's from the point of view of a kid, and it's even the shots are set up that way, and I really love that about the movie. I know there's a few people that I know of that's just jarring to them, and that's something that they don't like about the film, but I love it. I think it really enhances the film and it really makes it stand out from a lot of these other horror sequels or just a lot of horror films, period, because it's just got such a surreal quality to it because of how it's directed. Also, Graham Revell's score is stellar. It's a stellar score, and that is a massively underrated score. I think it's just about as underrated as the movie itself. His score is wonderful. It's music to your ears. It really gives this film a big, grandiose feel to it, and that enhances the mood and the atmosphere immensely. I can't sing enough praises for Graham Revell's score for Child's Play 2. And I do definitely give it a listen if you can sometime. Del Mancini, he came back and he actually ended up writing the entire screenplay for this film. And I gotta give credit where credit is due here. Don did a good job. He did a good job writing the film. He did a good job bringing in the old characters, with Andy, and also bringing in new characters like Alex. And, had some fun lines of dialogue that he threw in there. Goddamn woman drivers. Throwing in fun stuff like that. And, the whole thing with the other good guy doll, Tommy, I thought was a nice little touch. And we made it so as if he kind of took an element that he wanted to use for the first Child's Play and used it here, where Chucky kind of goes around and kills Andy's enemies. But I kind of look at it as Chucky just goes on a killing spree. That's what it is. It's a body count movie. The guy who was trying to fix the machine in the good guy factory near the end and got his eyes punched out is not an enemy to Andy. So I don't agree with nor necessarily understand why Don seems to think that this movie is taking that element that he was going to use for the first film and Chucky's going around and killing Andy's enemies. I don't see it that way at all, but that's just my personal opinion. Um, and that's another thing. I really loved how creative the kills were in this. They were ingenious. This has some of the best kills in the entire franchise, if not the best. The eye punch out scene, the guy gets his eyes punched out, gets a doll's eyes put back in. That's one of my favorite kills in the entire franchise. It starts off kind of weak though, with the technician guy gets electrocuted in a really bad looking effect. I have to be honest. The animation on the electricity or whatever does not hold up well, and it was just he kind of gets flung back in this cartoonish way. But as it goes on, though, it gets a lot better in terms of its kills. Um, Although it was a little bit censored, and I think that's probably because of the MPAA. They were notorious around this time for just cutting horror films to shreds. And I'm pretty sure they probably did that to Child's Play too. Um, but yeah, it's a fun script. You got fun scenes. You got the whole stuff where, Kyle ends up, Chucky flips off, pulls the middle finger, pulls the middle finger out. I love that. Uh, the whole thing where he goes and approaches Mrs. Kettlewell with the ruler. He's like, "You've been very naughty, Mrs. Kettlewell." Yeah, so there's a lot of fun lines and fun scenes. The whole sequence at the end in the toy factory and the Good Guy Factory is one of my all-time favorite sequences out of the entire franchise. I love the way it's shot. I love the labyrinth of good guy dolls. It's I love it. I love the way everything plays out. I love how Andy and Kyle dispatch Chucky. I love how he loses his hand, but then he goes in and puts like a giant knife in place of his missing hand. I mean, and tapes it up, and it's just relentless. I love how relentless Chucky is. I also love it's just there's so much to love about this movie. I don't see there isn't anything to hate about this film. There isn't anything that I don't like about this movie. I mean, all the characters I'm fine with. The foster parents, I thought Jenny Agutter was great. Gerrit Graham, I thought did a fine job. A lot of people want to say he's an asshole. To each their own. I thought he was reasonable. His reactions were reasonable to the situation. You got to look at it this way. He doesn't know the things that we, the audience, know. So you look at it from his perspective, not knowing all these things, you would think Andy is crazy too. You wouldn't want you would think he's a handful. Understandably so. Why would you believe that some killer doll has been killing people? I mean, logically, from the logical perspective, and you have not experienced it for yourself, and you don't, you know, it's not something you probably would believe, and it makes sense. And the other supporting characters were fine, but mainly it was Christine Elise who really stood out to me. I loved her character. Kyle's this character who's kind of this runaway, kind of like a not necessarily a punk, but she's this kind of character she's got a little bit of an edge to her. She's edgy. She's rough around the edges, but she's got a nice heart, and she puts that on display here by risking her life for Andy, who she barely even knows. And that shows you how much she actually does have a heart. And she's not your typical teenager who just doesn't give a shit. And I like that. And I really liked her performance. And I would have liked to have seen more of her in the franchise, but apparently that just wasn't meant to be. But and apparently it also wasn't meant to be that MGM was going to do this movie, because the sequel was actually in pre-production with MGM and UA. But then some executive producer from United Artists, they told David Kirshner, they told him that the film was put on hold. Child's Play 2 was put on hold because the studio was about to be acquired by some Australian group named Quintex, who decided that in their best interest, that it was not a good idea to make horror movies. So yeah, they decided we don't want to make horror movies. And so that MGM and UA were no longer able to make Child's Play 2. So then there were offers by Paramount, Warner Brothers, Columbia Pictures, 20th Century Fox, The Price Company, Carlico. Hey, can you imagine that? Child's Play 2 by Carlico, who during this time had a distribution deal with Columbia's sister studio TriStar Pictures, New Line Cinema, which was at that point in time was actually bought out by Warner Brothers, Disney's Touchstone Pictures, yes, Touchstone, but they were all rejected. So Kirshner produced it independently with Universal Pictures distributing, which is interesting. I guess Kirshner just said, no, I don't want any of you to do Child's Play 2. I'm going to produce this independently, and then Universal is going to distribute the film. It turned out pretty well, so I can't really complain that much in terms of how things turned out. The film also features really lush cinematography by Stefan Kazapsky, especially during sequences in the toy factory and things like that. It looked like something out of Toys. It really did. That whole toy factory scene reminded me of the toy factory scenes in Toys, the film with Robin Williams, and that's one of my favorite films. So it was nice to see that kind of production design again, and it fit really well with the film. And going back to the whole good guys sort of thing, I really liked how Don Mancini's script gave you a peek behind the curtain about who's producing these good guy dolls, and who the CEO is, and all this kind of stuff. And And I thought that was a nice little touch, and it also was a nice little prelude to what you would get in the climax of the film. The movie's only 84 minutes. It goes by at a really quick pace, and that's without the end credits. And I know some people might take offense to certain things, like how Chucky is easily able to get the location of Andy by just calling up the foster home and saying, "This is his Uncle Charles," you know. I'm like, I don't really care. I think the film is really entertaining and has likable characters. Brad Dourif is great as Chucky, as always. I can see why this is his favorite film that he's done out of the franchise. Um, you got great puppet work by Kevin Yeager, who actually improves upon his work from the first movie. I think he was robbed of an Oscar nomination for this, just like he was robbed of another Oscar nomination for his makeup effects work on the first movie. I don't know what is up with the Academy snubbing Kevin Yeager for his revolutionary animatronic puppetry effects for the Child's Play films, but it's a raw deal. It really is. I loved how they made Chucky look pissed off. He was a more angry, unhinged Chucky, which made him all the more terrifying to me. This is probably the scariest Chucky has looked in the entire franchise, if you ask me. And I just love the inventiveness of the climax of how they kill off they that seems like, see, in the first movie, yeah, you had the false finishes kind of in this one, but you didn't have three of them. So you had the whole thing where Chucky is in the toy factory, and he gets outsmarted and gets all these good guy dolls body parts punched into him, but then he still manages to survive, and then he gets melted by melted good guy parts, and I thought that was actually really, and then he gets his head blown off by this air compressor, which is just a great crowd pleasing moment. And it was kind of a zany sort of finale, but it was a perfect finale for a zany kind of movie. It's got this comic, cartoonish feel to it, but it's still morbid enough, and there's still enough seriousness to it that to me it's still scary, and by the same time it's also really fun. It's the same kind of entertainment value that I get out of films like Creepshow. The most fun you'll ever have being scared. It's kind of that's what I have, the kind of feelings I get while watching Child's Play too. And yeah, it's a film that like I said, I've been just thinking about it. There isn't really that much that I can say that I find that wrong with it. I mean, the editing is good as well, and so it's well edited. There's a decent amount edited by Edward Warshchikla, and apparently there's a bunch of deleted scenes. They're not on the DVD or anywhere, but they were like on TV versions of the movie, including a different ending where Andy and Kyle, after they come out of the factory, they're taken back inside and they're shown pieces of Chucky, most notably his eye stirring in a vat of plastic, and then a new head is made without hair or eyes, and then the head makes an evil grin, setting the scene for Child's Play 3. I can see why they cut that out because we didn't really need a sequel bait ending, and but it wouldn't have affected my enjoyment that much of the movie if they actually did go with that ending. It would have been nice to see Catherine Hicks, but apparently they didn't want to go with her, so they only have her in archive footage. I don't. If there's one little nitpick about the story, it would be this. I mean, having it so Catherine Hicks's character just went crazy, and that's why she can't, be with Tom. She can't, Tommy. That's the name of the other good guy doll. She can't be with her son. She can't take care of her son. Uh, Andy, after everything that she went through in the first film, was kind of disheartening. I have to be honest. So, but that doesn't really affect my enjoyment of the film or my overall critical viewpoint of the movie because it's such a little thing. It's such a little thing. They set that up so Andy can go into foster care. So you can bring in Jenny Agutter's character and and Gerrit Graham's character, and Christine Elise's character, Andy. Not Andy, Kyle. Andy and Andy, no, Kyle. So you have Andy and Kyle, and I love the chemistry between those two, between Christine and Alex, and that's one of the main other big reasons why I really enjoy this movie. Also because Chucky looks the best he's ever looked in this movie, if you ask me. At least before he got scarred, he got some nice kills, some nice gore, some nice gags, good direction by John Lafia, great score by Graham Revell. Um, just good guy, good old fashioned horror fun. I mean, good guy fun. I mean, it's a good time to be had for all. Uh, but Catherine Hicks was still on the set of the film, though. She was constantly on set on the film because she was there to see her husband, Kevin Yeager, who was working on the Chucky doll. And apparently, Chris Sarandon was originally going to reprise his role as Detective Mike Norris from the first film. Excuse me, I can't speak for some reason. But his scenes were cut from the film due to budgetary issues. Interesting. I'm okay with him not being in there. I like the fact that it's Andy's movie. I like that. I like that aspect of it. Because think about that. How many horror films do you know of and horror film sequels do you know of where it's a kid? The kid is the lead. It's the kid's film. It's his movie. And it's Chucky's movie as well, because we got to be honest. We don't come to see Child's Play 2 to see Andy. We come to see Child's Play 2 to see Chucky. And, the film does not disappoint when it comes to that. Even though it didn't do as well as the first film did, it still did open up at #1 in the box office when it came out, which was I believe it was in November. It was on November 9th, 1990. So it was in November, just like the first film. The first film came out in November as well. The original script, speaking of Catherine Hicks's character, it originally had an opening scene of court hearing dealing with the events of the previous film. Catherine Hicks was to reprise her role of Karen Barclay in this sequence, but it was cut before filming began. Elements of the scene appeared in a similar courtroom scene in Curse of Chucky, which, yeah, great. We're gonna borrow those elements for Curse of Chucky. All I can say about that movie is I'm not looking forward to watching that again. Absolutely not. Apparently, Beth Grant, who played Miss Kettlewell, she was very hesitant to accept the role of Miss Kettlewell because of the fact that it's a horror movie. She liked the script, but she didn't really like the fact it was a horror film. So she called her friend, actress Dinah Manoff, who played Maggie in Child's Play, asking for advice. And Manoff replied, "Well, if you see Child's Play, you'll find that I'm in it." Grant took her attitude as a good omen and signed on. Now, by the way, this is all stuff that's on Wikipedia, on IMDb's trivia section, so it could be bogus. But I just thought I'd mention that because that was an interesting bit of trivia. David Kirshner was actually the one that presented Don Mancini the idea of making the film take place, in a foster home. I thought that was a nice choice by David Kirshner. And apparently Mark Patrick Carducci was also developing a script for the movie at the same time as Don Mancini, but they did not go with his script. And this film was the film debut of Christine Elise, who I thought I didn't even know it was her first feature film debut. That's a great debut. And it's really a shame she didn't really go on to do a lot after this, because I thought she showed a lot of potential here with the performance. And Adam Wiley, who played one of the foster kids, Sammy, this was also his feature film debut as well. Kevin Yeager ended up directing several scenes featuring Chucky when the puppets proved problematic to work with for the director. And so, nice job, Kevin. And the film's body count is around 7, so it has a higher body count than the first film. So it's more of a body count movie. I think this has one of the higher body counts out of the entire franchise. And you know, it does. It's more of a slasher, I have to admit. You know, I didn't mind the slow burn suspense stuff of the first movie, but you know, if I want to sit back and watch and relax and eat some, popcorn or some chips with a can of Mellow Yellow, I'm more likely to go for a slasher than I am going to go for a suspense thriller with horror elements. But you know, that's just my personal opinion. And I'm not alone. This film does have its fans, and I'm really glad that it does. I definitely do feel that this is a movie that a lot of people should, keep talking about, defending it, do whatever you have to do to get, the name of Child's Play 2 out there. And if you're not a fan of the film, that's fine. I'm to each their own. But I could definitely call myself a fan. I love this movie. There was a great sequel, and it was kind of downhill. It was pretty much downhill from here. I watched Child's Play 3 again, and well, let's just say I've seen worse. But I thought it was all right. It was decent, and I'll talk about that more when my next review of Child's Play 3. Anyway, I don't know what else to say except it was rated out of this film out of 5 stars. I give it 5 out of 5 stars. I know that's a really high rating, but I personally don't find anything wrong with it. The only thing that I had a nitpick with is the whole thing where Catherine Hicks's character, the way that things happen with her is kind of disappointing, kind of lame. But that happens. That's just a little bit. It doesn't affect my enjoyment of the film that much. And the rest of the other elements in the movie are so strong that it just more than makes up for it. So, I would highly recommend this to people if they haven't seen it, as well as the first movie. Or if you haven't seen the film in a while and you weren't a fan of it, I'd recommend giving it another watch. But yeah, I mean, this film even had a great ad campaign. It was even nominated for an award for a stellar ad campaign. I mean, the ad campaign itself is as memorable as the movie. I mean, the whole thing with the Jack in the Box, and then Chucky stomps on it, and then sorry, Jack, Chucky's back. It's a great ad campaign. Apparently, there's also a novelization of the film, and I do have that, and it's a really good read, and I do recommend that as well to fans of this movie, because it does a great job. Matthew J. Costello did a great job writing it, and there are certain sequences that are actually from the point of view of Chucky. So you get to read the book, and then you get to see what Chucky is thinking and feeling in these certain sequences, which is really a novel concept and a novel idea for a novelization. But anyway, yeah, that's my review of Child's Play 2. I know it's not as long as some of the other ones, but it's a pretty straightforward movie. It's a straightforward film. There's some good gore. There's some solid screenwriting, a great direction, a great score, and really fantastic climax in the toy factory. And it's got great pacing. It's really fast paced. It's not. It doesn't take a while to get going. And yeah, it's a classic in my opinion, and I really cannot wait uh, till Scream Factory. I really that is one of my most anticipated Blu-rays from them. I hope they do it sometime next year. They did Child's Play. I mean, they're working with Universal. It has to be coming. It has to be. I mean, that is my most anticipated Blu-ray of next year for Scream Factory. It's Child's Play 2 Collector's Edition. Get it done. Let's get a ton of new features. Let's load that up. I think this film deserves it, and I would love to see it in a new transfer, plus with new features, maybe a commentary track with the director, new interviews with the cast and crew. I mean, I think this film, it more than deserves it. It wasn't a bomb when it came out. It didn't make as much as Child's Play, but it was still not a box office flop. It doesn't deserve some bare bones, nothing DVD or Blu-ray. Let's get on it. Universal and Scream Factory collaborate and give the fans the Blu-ray that they've been waiting for and that this film deserves. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the review, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.